Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 169 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. We take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we're going to be carrying on with that pack that was done by Scott. And then we've got a couple monkeys and a carnivoran, which I'm really excited to get stuck into. So we're going to be starting off with Scott's British butterfly pack. And we've got another 3 species coming from that. I've split it up as I mentioned before. But here we've got the painted lady. So really nice. We get a good one look at one right off the bat. So the C species name, or the binomial name for this guy, is Vanessa Calduri, and is considered one of the most widespread of all butterfly species. So they're also called the cosmopolitan, but generally the painted lady. So you can see the kind of general colours there. You can see that they've got this kind of orange-yellow tint to them, along with the tips of the wings and a bit of blue, but not blue, white hanging out there. So really interesting, and you can see kind of the same at the bottom, except there's a lot more browns, and you can see a little bit of blue in there as well. Very, very pretty colours. So in terms of distribution, as I mentioned, they are the widespread of all butterflies. They're found in every continent except for Antarctica and South America. And they do range into Australia, typically a limited range to like Burmbeef, Fremantle and Rosenet Island. However, there is a close relative, the Australian painted lady, that lives around half of the continent of Australia. So as I mentioned as well, these guys have a lot of host plants, about 300 recorded species of host plants, so that allows them to be quite common, so they're quite generalist. And they will also, adult butterflies will feed on flower nectar and aphid honeydew. And one of the really cool things about these guys is their migration habits. So these guys have migratory. So they can be found in any temperate zone, including mountains in the tropics, but they're seasonally they're only resident in warmer areas, but they do migrate in spring. So in Europe, they migrate from North Africa and the Mediterranean to Britain and Europe in May and June. Occasionally, they'll even reach Iceland, and from the Red Sea Basin, Israel, they kind of go to Cyprus and Turkey in March to April and kind of do that as well. And it was debated whether these guys make a southward migration. But these do take place with an autumn migration that's typically from tropical Africa to the Arctic Circle, and a successive kind of migration about 6 generations. So it's really interesting. And they also, some in America have kind of similar migratory patterns where they fly north or northwest. So that's really interesting. Though they're not like fully, kind of migrational in the same way like a lot of animals are. It's kind of a little bit more random than that. And actually, there was a study that in 2024 they found the first evidence of a painted lady or any insect in general flying across an ocean. So there were specimens that were captured on the beach of a painted lady on French Guiana, outside of their natural habitat, and pollen grains show that they may have come from West Africa, and shows that these guys were born in Europe or Africa. So they did fly a pretty big distance to get to French Guiana. So that's pretty interesting as well. In terms of their behaviour, groups of about 2 to 8 painted ladies have been observed flying in circles around each other, which symbolises courtship. Groups of butterflies will not fly more than 4.5 metres or 15 feet away from the starting point. And to establish and defend their territories, adult males perch in the late afternoon in areas where females are more likely to appear. And once the male spots a female of the same species, he begins to pursue her, and if the foreign butterfly is male, he'll chase him down, flying vertically to get him off this perch. And typically their habitats, they do like hedgerows, quite sheltered areas, but they also tend to inhabit sunny, brightly lit, open habitats that are often attracted to open areas such as flowers and clovers. And adults spend their time in small depressions on the ground, typically on an overcast day. In terms of mating, they do have a unique kind of system of mating. This is also attributed to their migratory patterns. So basically, during the European migrations, they immediately begin to mate and lay eggs upon arriving in the Mediterranean, and they kind of breed as they kind of go north, which is quite interesting. And due to this pattern, they start breeding and reproducing through the migration, so there's kind of different generations as you go up, which is quite cool. And they're quite polygamous, so they have lots of mates. And they're not that good appearance because they will often feed or lay their eggs on plants that just happen to be feeding next to, even if the larvae's mortality is kind of rises. so they do not take into account volatile chemicals in host plants and things like that, which is a bit interesting. And the availability of these resources actually dictates a preference for specific areas of flowers, and flowers with more available nectar are more likely to have eggs, and this reinforces they do not really discriminate on host plants. And the availability of adult food source determines where they lay. It's not they don't go out of their way to look for good plants for their eggs to live on, which is interesting. And in terms of vision, they are a visual animals. They can see, and they have vision very similar to a honeybee. So they can see ultraviolet, blue, and green. And however, unlike other butterflies such as monarchs and red postman butterflies, they do lack red receptors, so they are not sensitive to red light. So that's a really cool fact about these guys. And often these guys are bred, and other species of painted ladies are bred for educational purposes in schools, but also are released in hospices and events and weddings. You know, kind of a pretty animal to release out, so that's quite cool. So that's how they impact popular culture. So yeah, quite cool. It's Painted Lady done by Scott. We're going to move on to another really cool one. We've got here the Purple Emperor. I'm going to get out of there. Go to the Purple Emperor, also done by Scott. So now that one's hiding in the corner there. There we are, now something nice and pretty. So the Purple Emperor is a Paleoarctic butterfly in the family Nymphalidae. And adults typically, you can see, have these dark brown wings with white bands and spots, and a small orange ring on each of their hindlimbs. That's kind of, you kind of see the orange rings there. And they also have a purple bluish sheen, as you can kind of see there, where they get the name Purple Emperor. This is from iridescence, so that's just kind of how they reflect light. And the males have that, and they have about a 70 to 80 millimeter, or about 2.8 to 3.1 inch wingspan. And then the females are slightly larger, about 80 to 92 millimeters, but lack the sheen, so only the males have that. And the caterpillar of this species tends to have green or white with yellow markings, and have two large horns on the anterior end and smaller one on the posterior. So we kind of mentioned that in terms of their description. In terms of their habits, females spend most of their time in tree canopies, favoring dense or mature oak woodlands, coming down only to lay their eggs in a small willow bush that grows in clearings or bridleways. And males will spend much of their time at the treetops, defending their territories from rivals, and actually sometimes descend to drink from puddles or feed. And unlike most butterflies, they do not just feed on flowers, but they will feed on the honeydew secreted by aphids, sap oozing from oak trees, or the dung, urine, and animal carcasses, so animal products. And actually, they have been noted by collectors. They often use animal carcasses in somewhat advanced stages of decay to actually lure these butterflies down to the ground to kind of catch them, which is pretty interesting. So in terms of the life cycle, they lay eggs in late summer on the upper sides of shallow leaves, preferring the broadleaf sallow, Salix caprea, but also will nest on the yellow narrowleaf shallow and various species of poplar plants. After hatching, the larvae will lie around the midrib of the plant and is quite well camouflaged and feed typically only at night. During winter, they hibernate in the forks of shallow branches, where they change colour and from green to brown to match their surroundings, with the larvae various states of being 35 to 40 millimeters when fully fed, or 55 to 56. And it is hard to give definitive measurements because of the structure. And in the following June, they will form a pale green chrysalis, about 30 to 35 millimeters long and 12 to 15 millimeters in length, that resembles kind of a leaf shoot. And then they emerge in July and are flying well into August. That's when their adult forms. So, as I mentioned, they've kind of got a really wide distribution around the Paleoarctic, so they can be found in Europe, including southern Britain, across the Paleoarctic into central and western China, and there's believed to be different subspecies around the place, but I'm not going to get really into that. In the British Isles, they were somewhat common in southern England, but because of because of the cutting down of the old broadleaf woodlands, things like the habitat fragmentation that started and continued during both World Wars, that was something that really decreased their population. But now they're considered pretty much uncommon. But they can still be found in some places, and there's even returning in some areas where they've done a lot of rewilding, such as the Nepic State in Sussex, where they've done a lot of rewilding to help the species. So they are not as common as they were in Britain, but it's a great example of rewilding and conservation efforts to help the species, which is always bloody amazing. So that's another Scott one. And we're going to be finishing off with the Red Admiral, not the New Zealand Red Admiral. This is the not American, European Red Admiral, not the New Zealand one, which I would love to talk about someday, but probably might not get the chance. But here's the Red Admiral, a really, really pretty butterfly. So this is Vanessa Atlantica. Uh, This is the Red Admiral or the Red Admirable. These guys are a well-characterized, medium-sized butterfly with black wings, those red bands, and white spots, and typically have a wingspan about 2 inches. So they do have a very wide range. They're typically found in temperate regions of North Africa, North and Central America, Europe, Asia, and even Hawaii and the Caribbean, so a very wide range. And in biology, they're actually one of the last species of butterflies in northern Europe to be seen, and they are also known to hibernate. And they re-emerged individuals actually typically tend to be darker colours than the first brood, and they often also fly in sunny winter days, especially in southern Europe. And in terms of their life cycle, they lay larvae that's approximately about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters long. The coloration is variable, but they are usually black with white spots and spines, and the spines persist in the pupal phase. And lab tests, they actually wanted to test how they grow in different temperatures. So they put, especially in the pupal stage, so they did a mix of higher temperatures to lower temperatures. The highest was 32, lowest was 7, and they did integrals between that to check how they grew. So the temperature did impact how fast they grew. So the fastest growing ones was the one at 32 degrees or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It took about 6 days. The one at about 7 degrees Celsius or about 45 degrees Fahrenheit was about 47 to 82 days. So it changed a lot on their kind of habitat, of course. And the primary host plant of the Red Admiral is the stinging nettle, and can also be found as on the false nettle, the Pennsylvanian pilote, and other species in that group. And in terms of their adult kind of stage, you can see the kind of that striking bright orange pattern that they've got there, and they do have summer and winter morphs. So in terms of their territoriality, they are territorial and perch during the afternoon until sunset, where the larger territories are optimal and subject to intrusion by other males more frequently than smaller territories. And these territories tend to be oval, about 8 to 24 feet, or about 2 to 7 meters, and about 13 to 42 feet, or about 4 to 12 meters. And males patrol their territory by flying around the perimeter between 7 to 30 times per hour. And on average, territory holders will kind of interact and with intruders 10 to 15 times an hour. When another male encroaches, the resident male will chase it out of his territory, using horizontal, paths and things like that to try and get rid of it. And patrolling is correlated with air temperature, so more commonly you'll find them out on warm days patrolling rather than cold days. In terms of mating, though, they will court females for several hours before they begin mating, and typically only a male with a territory will get the chance to mate, so it's very hard to maintain a territory. So that's kind of, why only those ones get to breed. And they do migrate. They migrate. Mating usually occurs in late autumn to early winter, and following the consecutive migration to southern regions in a warmer climate. And the Red Admiral's main host plant, the stinging nettle, was most abundant during this migration. And larval development proceeds through winter, and adults are first sighted in early spring. And they've actually been looking at the kind of the isotopes, looking at the cynical nature of this migration. They've been looking to that to see this migration. And in spring, individuals arrive at northern Europe were of a southern origin and things like that. So it's quite cool to know that these guys have quite big migrations. And in terms of their vision, they do have color vision in the 440 to 490 nanometers range, so they can see colors such as indigo, blue, green, and yellow. And their eyes are not too different from a human retina. They just have the specific ones. And in terms of climate change, spring temperatures across Europe have increased between 1976 and 1998, and they're probably still increasing. So there has been they've been starting to arrive a little bit earlier, about a month earlier than they normally would. So this is potentially something that could, something with climate change, though the kind of, you think about, they're expanding northwards, things like that, but climate change is also having the other effect with more frequent droughts and leads to habitat and host plants destruction. So there is kind of, a bit of a balancing act. They're probably not doing as well as we think they are because of all this extra stuff. But yeah, that's all the butterflies done for today. That was all done by Scott. And this is the second part of his kind of British butterfly pack. I will cover the last two next time, along with some really other cool animals. So we're going to be carrying on. We've got by Mega Kebab, we've got the three-striped night monkey. So let's have a look at these cool guys here. So this is the three-striped night monkey, and that's an elderly one, so that's all right. So three-striped night monkey, or Aotus trivigatus, also known as the northern night monkey or the northern owl monkey, is one of several species of owl monkey currently recognized and is found from Venezuela and north-central Brazil. So until 1983, these guys were all regarded as a subspecies of Atoas trilvagus and all referred to as Doclurus. But turns out there's actually a whole different species of them. They're all kind of considered one species, but now they've been split into many. And the use of the name exclusively for the three-night monkey is not usually accepted, so sometimes they use it the genus. So yeah, there's a few different species that we could go into, but I'm not going to go too much into that taxonomy. But similar to other species of owl monkeys and their close relatives, the three-striped night monkey will live in woodlands or rainforests, and you can see they're mainly black with striking white markings on their face, where they kind of get that face, looking like an owl. And their body size is about 27 to 48 centimeters, with a tail that's about the same length again. And adults can weigh up to about 1 kilogram. They have very large eyes, you can see, and are most not active at night. Another reason why they're kind of called owl monkeys, especially on moonlit nights. And they tend to feed on fruit, nuts, leaves, insects, very much other small invertebrates, and bird eggs. So a bit of variety there. So have a look at the baby while we talk about that little cute little baby, little cute little guy. So the three-striped night monkey will form pairs, which are broken only by the death of one partner. So they are kind of monogamous in that group pair. They will live in family groups though, with their immature young staying with their parents until they're about 3 or 4 years old. And normally only one infant is born, like these little guys here, and they gestate for about 4 months before they are born. Yeah, another really cute little guy. I love Mega Kebab. We've got a lot of really cool monkeys I get to talk about, and primates, which is really cool. So yeah, we'll keep on keeping on with that one. So next up, we have got the white-balled Uakari. So another really cool one there. So this was done by Great Cakes Mod, another winner by Great Cakes. Well, that's the juvenile. Let's have a look at the adult. No, that's an adult. That was good. So this is a subspecies of the bald Uakari, which is a small New World monkey characterized as that very short tail, crimson face, bald head, and long coat. So there's four different subspecies. This is considered the type subspecies, Kakajo calvus calvus, which is interesting. And that suggested that there actually could be a few different species. There is some evidence that suggests they could be different species, especially these wide, bald Uakaris. But we're not going to get into that at the moment. In terms of description, the bald Uakari weighs about 2.75 to 3.45 kilograms, or about 6 to 7 pounds, with a head-to-body average of 45.6 centimeters, or 18 inches in males, and 44 centimeters, or about 17.3 inches in females. And generally you can see they've got that quite long, shaggy coat going on, which can be either white or red in color, and they've got that bald head, which is because, they don't have any pigment in their face, so that's all the blood in their face makes them look like they're constantly blushing. And the tail is actually, believe it or not, quite short for a New World monkey, and is kind of considered a little bobtail, and it reaches only about half the length of the body at about 15 centimeters, which is quite interesting. So in terms of their behavior, these guys are arboreal and prefer to live in seasonally flooded forests in areas of the Amazon River Basin. And it's quite important that they are arboreal because they're not that good swimmers, because the flooding in the forest means that they kind of go quite high, like high water in the raining season. During the dry season, though, they'll return to the ground and look for food. In terms of their diets, there's been a study looking at the diets, and they found they eat mostly about 67% seeds, 80% fruits, 6% flowers, and 5% animal prey and buds. And they're powerful. They have quite powerful lower jaws, which are pseudodental comb, which allows them to open the hard surfaces of unripe fruits and eat the nuts that most other primates will not be able to get to. So it's a great example of niche petitioning. And they will also eat insects that eat them, but they do not specifically pursue them. So the bald Uakari can be found traveling about 4.8 kilometers per day, and in multi-male to multi-female groups about 5 to 30 individuals, sometimes even 100, and has been extrapolated that from general behavior that these guys are philopathic, so that means the males will leave their natal group, or the males will leave the group that they're born in, the females will stay for their whole lives. The total size of a group's home ranges between 500 to 600 hectares, and they requires effective territorial defense mechanisms, and that includes specific vocalizations, tail wagging, and hair erection to kind of try and get them to defend their territory. Here's a little baby here. So the bright red skin, as you can see, is kind of a sign of good health, and actually allows them to weed out to find healthy mates. And the breeding season is from October to May. And one thing interesting as well, they are quite common to get malaria. So often these guys are noticeably paler than monkeys that don't have malaria. So that's kind of a way that they decide mates. You got malaria, we're not going to breed with you. But the breeding season for these guys is between October and May. The gestation is approximately about 6 months. And both sexes have a central gland, which is used in olfactory kind of communication. So that's how they communicate with each other, which is quite cool. And the border Uakari can live for about 30 years and has been known to live over 30 years in captivity. So in terms of conservation, they are considered vulnerable. They're not doing too bad, but the same kind of threats affect these guys as most other Amazonian animals, which includes hunting and habitat loss. So there's believed to be a decline because of habitat loss and potentially hunting. So they are hunted as well for bushmeat and things, as they use as a sort of food. But luckily there are lots of conservation groups trying to protect the rainforest, like the World Bank in 1999 put forth $350 million to protect parts of the rainforest. And luckily there's lots of other groups that want to defend it from things such as illegal logging, mining, and deforestation. So they are luckily protected in that regard. But yeah, they're easily at risk of becoming more endangered. They are considered vulnerable. But yeah, quite cool. Another great cakes mod. That is very great. And speaking of great cakes, we've got another one from them. We have got the Zanzibar red Colobus. So that's a really, really cool one we get to have a look at there. So the Zanzibar red Colobus, or Colobus kirkii. So these guys are a species of red Colobus that are endemic to Unguja, which is the main island in the Zanzibar archipelago, which is off the coast of Tanzania. Also known as Kirk's dictic. Kirk's red Colobus, after Sir John Kirk, who was the British resident of Zanzibar who first brought attention to science, which is quite cool. So in terms of the history, these guys are a great example of how animals change on islands. So these guys are believed to split from colobuses when the sea level rose during the Pleistocene, and they've been isolated there. Molecular evidence suggests that they're more closely related to the Uakari red colobus, and they've been living apart from them for about 600,000 years. So they have been around for quite a long time. And looking at their cranial morphology and looking how they are different to mainland species, it's actually cool. They have a smaller cranium, which actually is in contrast to mainland ones, which is Foster's rule, that often larger animals become smaller over time with limited resources, and males tend to be pedomorphic or have juvenile traits and have a large neurocranium, which is interesting. And in terms of the physical description, they are mentioned an old world monkey. So their cane coat ranges from dark red to black, accentuated with the black stripe along the arms, and then pale undersides. You can kind of see their pale colours under there. They also have a talon tail that is not prehensile, so they don't use it to climb. It's just a counterbalance. And there is sexual dimorphism greatly decreased as in this species, with males, females being more or less the same size, and like a lot of other species of colobuses, where males are bigger. They also have, as I mentioned, females will usually outnumber males in groups, and they have notably small cranium and rotund body shape, with males potentially reaching up to about 12 kilograms or 26 pounds, and females about 10 kilograms or 22 pounds. And the word Colobus comes from the Greek word iskobe, which means he cut short, so that means like a significant reduction in size, and they do like an opposable thumb, a lot of the primates. And another name for them is called, in locals call them the kind of Kumbapuju, which means poison monkey, because they've quite a strong smell. And this has actually led to them, a lot of people having negative views on these monkeys on the island, because they are smelly, have an evil influence on the trees on which they feed, and ultimately kill the trees, which is of course not true. But their habitat, they can be found in three forests along the archipelagos, and they have quite a wide habit tolerance or habitat tolerance, but they're mainly arboreal and prefer drier areas over wetter ones. So the habitat includes coastal thickets and coastal rag shrub, but they can also be found in mangrove swamps and agricultural areas. And it's estimated to be about 1,600 to about 3,000 remain, so they are considered endangered. And currently, about 50% of these monkeys are found on islands. Islands live outside these kind of protected areas. The largest and most significant protected area for the monkey is the Jozani National Park, which protects about 25 square kilometers of land. It is located on the main island, and this has been a great place to look and study them, which is quite cool. In terms of the behavior, the groups are typically up to about 4 males and many adult females, with typically the ratio for every male there's 2 females. With young of various ages, and these groups can get up to about 30 to 50 individuals. They're also quite social, and often can be seen playing and grooming during rest periods between meals. And unlike females in a group, males actually maintain close bonds, acting together to defend the group, and even grooming each other. So in terms of their diet and their feeding, these guys are very, very interesting, diet-wise. So they very much like to eat a lot. Feeding is a group activity. They begin to feed in the morning and are more active during cooler parts of the day. Loud calls from males indicate the group is ready to move from another tree to feed. And these guys are mainly folivores, typically feeding on young leaves. They also leave shoots, seeds, flowers, and unripe fruit. And they've also been seen eating bark, dead wood, and soil. And they're actually one of the few species of monkey that cannot eat ripe fruit. Because they have a stretulated stomach that has 4 chambers, like a ruminant, that allows them to digest cellulose, this also means they can't break down the sugars in mature fruits. And often, because they feed on these young leaves, they will consume charcoal, which is believed to aid in the digestion of the toxins found in young leaves of the Indian almond tree and the mango tree. And the habit of consuming charcoal is thought to be a learned behavior passed on from mother to offspring as well, so that's quite cool. And not all populations have this, so it's something that is learnt. And some populations will use mangroves as a source of food, and it's natural to obviously eat more salt than they would normally, so often they'll drink directly from tree holes or lick water off leaves as well. And in terms of reproduction, we'll have a look at the cute little baby while we talk about reproduction. They're a little bit of a slower breeder, being an island species. Well, that's not helping. I can't believe everything's gone off today. Males will usually reach sexual maturity about 3 to 3.5 years old, while females attain sexual maturity at about 2. Often, like other monkeys, their genital area and everything will swell to show that they're ready to mate, and then they'll mate and have a baby. Gestation will last for about 6 months for a Colobus monkey, and they typically will have 1 to 2 babies every 2 years. And parental care is intense, and often this role is shared by multiple females within the group. And it's been observed that about 76% of offspring are born between September and December, with infanticide being noted on occasion when new male joins given groups of infants. And research has suggested that the ability of dietary expansion, while consuming charcoal, partly allows and explains the higher birth rates and densities due to resource availability. And birth rates of those living in mangroves are higher than Colobus monkeys in coastal rag forests. There were also higher birth rates between October and December for colobines on Uzon Island, and then January and February those of Kinawenga, which is found on the eastern side. And also is found that infant mortality is significantly higher, with half of infants not born reaching, or half of infants born not reaching more than 6 months old. So that's quite interesting as well. In terms of their communication as well, though, we'll talk about the communication, because that is a very interesting thing about all these little monkeys. So we can get a good look at them. The Colobus monkey has actually a smaller larynx compared to other members of the Colobine subfamily. The male's call is more of an alto or soprano with a low bass than a male of a black and white Colobus. The Zanzibar red Colobus is non-territorial and in nature, and does not typically make loud, threatening calls. And a Zanzibar red colobus is distresses warning calls of like a bark or a chester or a wheat. And one of the loudest calls of the monkey's herd is when he establishes dominance over the group when checking the sexual status of his females. The calls heard most often by people is the alerting call, and this is an attention-getting call. It is derived from a progression call. Chirps and grunts are made in the surrounding areas, such as weathers or animal movements. And with most arboreal species, there's typically two different calls. So there's like one when an animal is coming up from the land, so like a cat or a monitor lizard or something. And then there's one when an animal is taken from the air, like a bird of prey. But because there's a lack of bird of prey on Zanzibar, this call is not often witnessed, which is interesting. And because it's extremely social, they actually do have a specific call for when it's alone for a certain amount of time upon feeling threatened or vulnerable. And the young are typically the ones to make the call. It sounds like a loud scream, but it also occasionally, likely when deemed necessary, will make some sort of version of this call. But yeah, sadly, they are considered quite endangered. A number of factors has contributed to this endangered status. One reason is an increase in deforestation, which has got rid of a lot of their habitat. And they've also been removing them and trying to translocate them to help with wild populations, which is good. There's also some local peoples that hold superstitions about the species and think they bring bad luck upon farmers, which is not true, but we want to kind of try and help them as well. And extensive habitat destruction. But a lot of the ways actually people are trying to help with these monkeys is actually just spread awareness and say that they're not actually harmful, but they're actually good for the economy. They draw tourism because they want to see this rare species of monkey, and this is actually kind of helping people live on the islands, which is quite cool. And I really do love these guys. Another really cool animal. Another great one by Great Cakes Mod. Always knocking it out the park. So last but certainly not least, we have got by Narwhal, we've got the spotted neck otter. So let's have a look at these wonderful guys. We'll have a look at them swimming. So here's one swimming. So the spotted neck otter, or Hydralitis macacolus, or the speckled-throated otter, is an otter native to sub-Saharan Africa. So they are found south of Sahara. These guys are usually chocolate or reddish brown, as you can see the colours there, and marked with creamy white blotches along the throat and chest. Their head is kind of broad with a short muzzle, small rounded ears, and a hairless nose pad. As you can kind of see there, look at that cutie there. Let's see if you can... Oh, he's walking on water. Oh, let's actually see if we can find another one swimming. Should be able to find another one swimming. Well, that's the baby. Well, we'll save him for later. Talk about you. So that is, the adult there. Their teeth are adapted for consuming fish, with large, sharp upper canine teeth, curved lower canines, and sharp carnassial teeth. And the jaws are similarly adapted with the mandibular fossa, fitting so snugly into the condyle, so that's kind of like the top jaw sitting so well at the bottom jaw, as that actually cannot allow them to move sideways, so they are fixed, and this allows them to easily catch slippery fish, which is quite interesting. They also are a relatively small species of otter. They're not as small as like the Asian small-clawed, but definitely not one of the bigger species. Males will weigh or measure about 71 to 76 centimeters, or about 28 to 30 inches from nose to rump, and weigh between 5.7 to 6.5 kilograms, or about 13 to 14 pounds, while females are about 57 to 61 centimeters, or 22 to 24 inches, and weigh up about 3 to 4.7 kilograms, or 6 to 10 pounds. And the tails you can see is quite long and muscular, and they can measure about 39 to 44 centimeters, or about 15 to 17 centimeters in both sexes. And you also see they're quite sleek, and they have webbed paws, unlike, kind of small-clawed otters. They do have webbed paws, and, they have little... Oh, let's look at the baby again. We'll cover them later. So there you can see the adult there. And you can see they've got the webbed, but they do have claws, not like Asian small-clawed. Females also have 2 pairs of teats, and while the male have a large scrotum, actually the penis is hidden in the body, or beneath the skin, and actually reduces drag, so you've got to be sleek as possible, can't let that dragging you down. And there was previously up to about 5 or so subspecies identified, but now they're just considered monotypic. So their habitat is lakes and larger rivers throughout much of Africa. They are common in Lake Victoria and around Zambia, but enter in the Zambezi below Victoria Falls, and are typically not found anywhere in saltwater. They are a freshwater species exclusive. In terms of their behavior and ecology, they are very vocal species, uttering high, thin whistles and rabid, shrill chatters. They do sometimes live in family groups, but under most circumstances, they are solitary. Male and females are separated for at least part of the year, and they normally hunt alone, except when females are training their young or mothers training their young, and they're not territorial, sheltering at night in short burrows, rock crevasses, or patches of dense vegetation. And on land, they travel mainly over regular paths and rarely move more than 10 meters or 33 feet from rivers to lake bank. Both mark their territories by spratting sites, where they have sites where they habitually or go back to defecate or urinate to kind of mark their territory. But this is typically, as I mentioned, no more than 10 meters away from a riverbank or lake bank. So this is also a diurnal species, so they can be found out during the day and usually hunt entirely by sight, using short dives of less than 20 seconds to find them each in clear water with good visibility. They will also carry larger prey ashore and eat smaller prey while treading water. It primarily will eat fish, typically less than 20 centimeters or about 7.9 inches, so they will eat fish. Let's see if we can have a look at that little guy there, having a good swim around. Look at this little cutie. I love seeing them swim around. Anyway, but they will also feed on frogs and small crustaceans when fish is in short supply, so they will have a bit of a varied diet. Beggars can't be choosers. And let's have a look at the cute little baby. I know we've already looked at it twice, but we've got to have a look at the cute little baby. How cute is he? Look at this little adorable guy. Look at how cute he is. Anyway, so the females typically bear a litter of up to about 3 young after a gestation period of about 2 months. And the young are born like other carnivorans, blind and helpless. And the mother would actually care for them for about a year. And known predators of these of these otters are lions, crocodiles, and African fish eagles. So they're not at the top of the food chain. But in terms of conservation, they are considered near threatened. They are declining mostly because of habitat destruction and pollution of clear water that it needs. So this is very common because obviously rivers and stuff are very easy to clog, and often they're the first to go, and these are the species first affected by it. And they're also hunted for bushmeat, so they are actively hunted and eaten, so that's a kind of an issue as well. But they are still got a wide distribution and kind of considered doing okay. They're near threatened, so they're kind of not quite least concern, but there is some threats that can be like, oh, maybe there's something to worry about. But anyway, that's finish up today. So that's Nawalo's spotted neck otter. Did a wonderful job with that. So, yeah, thank you for Scott and Mega Kebab and Great Cake Spot and Nawalo. All of you done a really great job with these species. Really, really awesome to see them. And, yeah, I think this will be a great place to end the video. So I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to click that little bell icon to get notified below anything. So, yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe. And bye-bye.